Adana Okoro adjusted her gown nervously as she stood backstage, heart racing with excitement and a little anxiety. At 22 she had worked tirelessly for this moment. Her law degree from the University of Abuja wasn't just a piece of paper. It was the culmination of years of late nights, endless lectures, and sacrifices she had made quietly. The grand auditorium buzzed with energy, families chatting, classmates hugging, cameras clicking. She could see the sea of faces in the audience, smiling, cheering, but her eyes searched for her parents. There they were, sitting a few rows back, Mr. and Mrs. Okoro, but something felt off. They waved occasionally, but their attention was glued to their phones, scrolling, texting, laughing at something Adana couldn't see. Her smile faltered for a moment, but she shook it off. Today was about her. She took a deep breath, rehearsing the speech she had memorized in her head 100 times. The ceremony began, applause echoing through the hall. When it was her turn to walk on stage for the valedictorian speech, she felt a surge of pride. Her voice trembled slightly at first, then steadied as she addressed her classmates, sharing hopes, dreams, and memories. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness swept over her. The words blurred. She tried to steady herself, but the world tipped sideways. Gasps filled the auditorium as she crumpled to the floor. Medical staff rushed forward, lifting her gently. Panic rippled through the audience, parents calling out, classmates whispering frantically. An ambulance was summoned. Through the chaos, Adana's mind spun, her heart pounding with fear, confusion, and a strange realization that life could change in an instant. Adana woke slowly to the sterile smell of the hospital room, her head heavy, her body weak, and her heart still racing from the sudden collapse at graduation. The steady beeping of the monitors and the soft shuffle of nurses outside made her feel both anxious and vulnerable. She tried to move, but a nurse gently pressed her back onto the bed. "Take it easy, Miss Okoro," she said kindly. Her parents, however, were nowhere to be seen. The doctors had called their numbers repeatedly, leaving messages, even texting updates about her condition, but each attempt went unanswered. Adana's chest tightened, not from pain but from a creeping disappointment. She realized her parents' attention was more about convenience than care, more about appearances than her actual well-being. Then, just as a wave of sadness threatened to overwhelm her, the door swung open. A tall, elderly man entered, walking briskly despite his age, with an energy that immediately filled the room. Grandpa Obafemi. At 78 he had seen more than most, but today his eyes were wide with worry. "Adana, my dear," he said, his voice firm yet gentle as he took her hand in both of his. The warmth of his grip, the strength in his voice, made her feel suddenly safe. He didn't ask about hospital bills or photos for social media. He didn't fidget with a phone or glance around distractedly. He just stayed by her side, holding her hand, talking softly, reminding her to breathe, reassuring her that everything would be okay. Tears pricked at Adana's eyes as she felt the stark contrast between him and her parents. Here was someone who truly cared, who valued her life over wealth or appearances. For the first time in years she let herself cry, not from pain but from relief. She realized that love and loyalty weren't about the people who showed up for the big events for show. They were about the ones who arrived when it mattered most, even if it was inconvenient or tiring. Grandpa Obafemi had come from Lokoja without hesitation, driven purely by concern for her. And in that quiet hospital room, holding his hand, Adana understood a truth she had never fully grasped before. Family isn't always about blood or money. It's about who stands by you when the world turns its back. Her heart, though weak from the collapse, felt stronger than ever. Adana slowly opened her eyes to the soft hum of the hospital machines, the sunlight filtering through the blinds. Her head ached, her body felt heavy, but she was alive, and for that she was quietly grateful. Around her bed were familiar faces, her closest friends sitting in chairs, holding her hand, offering water and whispering encouragement. Their concern was genuine, their smiles warm, and for the first time in a long while, Adana felt surrounded by people who truly cared. The door creaked open and she heard footsteps that made her chest tighten. Her parents had finally arrived. Mr. and Mrs. Okoro stepped in, faces apologetic but distant, eyes darting around the room. "We're so sorry, Adana," her mother said, voice polite but flat. "But what about the hospital bills? How much is this going to cost us?" Her father added, glancing at the machines. "And did you let the doctors know all the charges?" Their words, so focused on money and inconvenience, made Adana's stomach twist. It was clear their concern was more about appearances and expenses than her health. Before she could respond, Grandpa Obafemi, sitting quietly by her side, spoke softly. "Consider it done," he said, his tone calm and certain. Within hours, all medical expenses were quietly settled through his account. No fuss, no arguments, just his way of protecting her, of giving her peace without any show. Adana watched him amazed. His wisdom, generosity, and calm presence contrasted sharply with her parents' cold, calculating behavior. As she rested, she noticed something unusual. Her classmates and even some strangers had started taking pictures from the hallway. Whispers of the incident had already spread. Soon, media attention began rising. Phones clicked, cameras flashed, and snippets of her story started appearing online. Adana felt a strange mix of embarrassment and empowerment. The world was watching not just because of her collapse, but because of the story behind it. A young woman abandoned by her parents, saved and supported by a loving grandfather. Despite the pain and fatigue, she realized something powerful. Her life wasn't controlled by her parents' neglect or the fleeting opinions of others. She had people who truly cared, a story worth telling, and a strength inside her that no one could take away. And in that quiet hospital room, with friends by her side and Grandpa's reassuring hand on hers, Adana began to feel the first sparks of real independence and self-worth. After a few days in the hospital, Adana felt stronger, though still fragile. Grandpa Obafemi sat beside her bed one afternoon, a quiet smile on his face. He had been her rock through the chaos, but today there was a different energy in the room, one of revelation. "Adana," he began gently, "there's something I've been meaning to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Adana leaned closer, curiosity and a little nervousness mixing in her chest. Grandpa cleared his throat and continued. "I may be old now, but I've had a long life. I built businesses, investments in Lagos, Port Harcourt, Kano, properties, companies, small ventures, you name it. But I never wanted you to feel pressured by wealth or distracted by family politics. That's why I've been quietly supporting your education all these years." Adana blinked, overwhelmed. "You paid for everything? My tuition, books, everything?" Grandpa nodded. "Yes, quietly. I wanted you to succeed on your own terms. You worked hard, and I only wanted to make sure nothing stood in your way, especially people who care more about appearances than your dreams." He squeezed her hand gently. "Adana, life isn't always fair. Some people will neglect you. Some will try to control you. But the most important thing is to be strong, to respect yourself, and to use your mind and your skills to create your own path." He leaned back, his eyes soft but steady. "Money is not just for spending. It's a tool. Learn to manage it, invest it wisely, and use it to build independence. Never let anyone make you feel small because of your age, gender, or family. True power comes from knowledge, resilience, and integrity." Adana felt tears prick her eyes. All those nights she had struggled alone, all the sacrifices she had made, they hadn't gone unnoticed. Her grandfather had seen her strength before anyone else did. In that quiet hospital room, she felt a surge of pride, gratitude, and determination. "Grandpa," she whispered, "I don't even know how to thank you." He smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. "Live your life well, Adana. Build your career, your future, and your independence. The rest will follow. Remember, resilience, self-respect, and financial wisdom, they are more valuable than any inheritance." For the first time, Adana understood the depth of his love. Not flashy, not loud, but unwavering, patient, and empowering. And in that moment she felt ready to face the world on her own terms, with her grandfather's lessons etched firmly in her heart. A few days after she was discharged, Adana decided to visit her parents' house. Not because she wanted to, but because she had to pick up a few personal things. As she walked quietly down the hallway, she froze when she heard voices coming from the living room. She peeked through the slightly open door and immediately recognized the tone of the conversation. Her parents were sitting with a lawyer, papers spread across the coffee table. "We need to make sure Adana doesn't get control of the family assets," her father said, voice low but firm. "She's too independent, too stubborn. We should find a legal way to claim her inheritance and put her career under our supervision." Her mother nodded, laughing lightly. "She thinks she's so strong, but really she's naive. Let's make sure she stays dependent on us. That will teach her a lesson about respect." Adana's chest tightened, a mix of anger and hurt rising inside her. All those times they ignored her achievements, dismissed her hard work, and treated her like a burden. They weren't mistakes or carelessness. This was deliberate. Their words, meant to be private, exposed a truth she hadn't fully faced. Her parents' love had always been conditional, tied to control and wealth. Later that evening she confided in Grandpa Obafemi. He listened carefully, his face calm but serious. "Adana," he said, placing a steady hand on hers, "this isn't just about anger or disappointment. You need to act smartly. Gather evidence, document everything. Use the law to protect yourself, not just your money but your freedom and your dignity. These people will test your patience, but you are stronger than they realize." That night Adana started quietly taking notes. She documented conversations, kept copies of emails and messages, and even made records of her parents' attempts to interfere with her career. She realized she was no longer a passive player in her own life. With Grandpa's guidance she was preparing to stand up, not with shouting or confrontation, but with evidence, intelligence, and strategy. For the first time Adana felt a mixture of fear and power. She knew the battle ahead would be tricky, but she also understood something crucial. Her parents' greed could no longer dictate her path. She was ready to protect herself, and nothing, not even her own family, would stop her from claiming the life she had earned. With Grandpa Obafemi's guidance, Adana slowly began building her own path. She started freelancing for a respected law firm in Abuja's Central District, handling small cases at first, but quickly proving her skills. Her sharp mind, attention to detail, and calm confidence caught the attention of senior lawyers, and soon she was trusted with bigger assignments. Every success, every compliment from her mentors, fueled her determination. For the first time she realized that her accomplishments didn't need anyone's approval, especially not her parents. At the same time, Grandpa encouraged her to explore other ways to secure her independence. Together they researched a small real estate project in Jos, and Adana decided to invest. She learned to manage money, track expenses, negotiate deals, and make decisions that were hers alone. It was a steep learning curve, but she loved the feeling of control, of building something that was fully her own. Grandpa sat beside her during late-night calls, explaining contracts, and reminding her of the importance of patience, planning, and persistence. Friends and mentors began noticing the change in her. She walked taller, spoke with more authority, and carried herself with quiet confidence. "Adana, you're really making a name for yourself," one colleague said during a coffee break. Another friend added, "It's amazing to see how much you've grown, inside and out." Each compliment felt like a small victory over the years of neglect and doubt she had faced. Her parents, meanwhile, remained completely unaware of her progress. They assumed she was still struggling or waiting for their guidance, blissfully ignorant that she had been quietly building a life they couldn't control. Adana smiled to herself whenever she thought of them, feeling a sense of satisfaction that was deeper than pride. It was empowerment. Sitting in her small apartment one evening, reviewing her legal notes and financial statements, she felt a warmth spread through her chest. She didn't need validation from those who had ignored her struggles or belittled her achievements. She was capable, strong, and independent. And for the first time in her life, Adana truly believed she could create the future she wanted, on her own terms, with Grandpa's wisdom guiding her every step. Adana had barely settled into her new rhythm when her parents made their move. One sunny afternoon she received a call from her mother, insisting she come to a family lunch at their villa in Abuja Hills. "It's just a small gathering, dear. We want to talk," Mrs. Okoro said, her voice syrupy sweet. Adana agreed, sensing immediately that this was no casual chat. When she arrived, the table was set lavishly, silverware gleaming, and the aroma of rich Nigerian dishes filling the air. Her parents greeted her warmly, but there was an edge to their smiles. Soon after the first course her father leaned forward, voice smooth but insistent. "Adana, you've done well, but it's time you joined the family business. You're freelancing, your investments, it's fine, but imagine what you could do under our guidance. We can expand everything faster together." Her mother chimed in, "Yes, darling. All your efforts, your successes, they should stay in the family. Hand over control. Let us help you manage it properly." Their words, meant to sound generous, felt suffocating. Adana took a deep breath, steadying herself. She looked them in the eye, calm but firm. "Thank you, but no. I've worked hard for my independence. I value my freedom, my decisions, and my life. My success is mine to manage. I appreciate your advice, but I will not hand it over." The room went silent. Her parents' faces tightened, disbelief and anger flickering behind their forced smiles. Before they could respond, Grandpa Obafemi spoke, his voice gentle but unyielding. "She is right. Adana is capable and wise. She doesn't need to give up her achievements to anyone, not even family. Respect her choices. Adana felt a quiet satisfaction as her parents flushed with frustration. No pleading, no manipulation, no subtle guilt trips could sway her. She was standing firmly in her own power with Grandpa by her side, protecting and guiding her. That lunch, meant to pressure her, ended up revealing the truth. Her parents could no longer control her. Adana walked away with her head high, heart steady, and a sense of triumph she had never felt before. She realized that independence wasn't just about money or career. It was about setting boundaries, holding her ground, and refusing to let anyone diminish her worth. And for the first time she felt completely untouchable. Word about Adana's story spread faster than she expected. A local news outlet ran a headline that caught everyone's attention. Law graduate overcomes family neglect with grandpa's support. Within hours, social media exploded. Tweets, posts, and videos shared her journey, highlighting the sharp contrast between her parents' neglect and Grandpa Obafemi's unwavering support. People were inspired, impressed, and even outraged on her behalf. Adana found herself invited for an interview on a popular morning show. Sitting under the bright studio lights, she felt a mix of nerves and excitement. When asked about her journey, she spoke honestly, her voice steady. "I was fortunate to have someone who believed in me when others didn't. My grandfather stood by me, supported my dreams, and taught me the value of resilience and self-respect. That support changed my life." She paused, smiling softly. "This is a reminder to everyone. Your worth isn't defined by others, even family. True success comes from self-reliance, hard work, and the people who genuinely care about you." The interview went viral almost immediately. Comments poured in from friends, classmates, and strangers alike. People admired her courage, determination, and the way she handled her parents' neglect with dignity. Her story sparked conversations about family, loyalty, and the importance of having mentors who truly care. Meanwhile, her parents' public image began to suffer. Friends and extended family who had once praised them blindly started questioning their behavior. Whispers and subtle judgment spread. People were seeing them not as the pillars of a successful family, but as those who had failed to support their own daughter. Adana watched all this quietly, a mix of relief and empowerment washing over her. She had survived neglect, built independence, and now her story was inspiring countless others. Yet through it all, she never boasted about herself. Instead, she gave credit where it was due. Grandpa Obafemi, the quiet man who had been her real champion. For the first time, Adana truly felt recognized, not for the wealth her family controlled or the name she carried, but for her courage, her choices, and the strength she had cultivated. Social media buzz, news coverage, and admiration from friends only confirmed one thing: she had stepped into her power and the world was finally noticing. Adana sat in the courtroom, heart pounding, as the judge read the verdict. After months of preparation, late nights, and countless arguments, the result was finally in. She had won. A high-profile social justice case that had grabbed national attention. The plaintiffs, ordinary citizens who had been ignored and silenced, now had their voices heard, and Adana's name was on everyone's lips. The feeling was overwhelming, a mix of pride, relief, and vindication. Outside the Abuja High Court, a small crowd of friends, mentors, and journalists waited. Grandpa Obafemi stood at her side, beaming with quiet pride, his hand resting gently on hers. Her closest friends rushed forward, hugging her tightly, cheering and snapping photos. Mentors clapped, praising her professionalism, persistence, and sharp mind. It was a celebration of more than just a legal victory. It was a celebration of her resilience, determination, and independence. Meanwhile, her parents were nowhere to be seen. Rumor had it they were embarrassed, humiliated by the public attention she was receiving without their influence. Their absence was a stark contrast to the genuine love and support she had experienced from Grandpa and her friends. Adana noticed it, and for a moment she allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Later, sitting in a quiet corner with Grandpa, she reflected on her journey. The years of neglect, the dismissive comments, the pressure to conform, they hadn't broken her. Instead, they had fueled her ambition, sharpened her focus, and strengthened her character. She realized that every challenge had been a lesson, every slight had been a test of her resilience, and every moment of doubt had taught her self-reliance. "I never thought it would feel like this," she whispered, eyes glistening. "To know that I've built something real, something I can be proud of without needing anyone's approval." Grandpa squeezed her hand. "Adana, you've learned the most important lesson. Adversity doesn't define you. How you respond to it does. And today the world sees not just a lawyer, but a woman who stood strong when it mattered most. For the first time, Adana fully understood the power of her own strength. She wasn't just winning cases, she was winning her life, her independence, and her future. And in that moment of triumph, surrounded by those who truly loved her, she felt unstoppable. Years of struggle, lessons, and triumphs had led Adana to this moment. In a small ceremony at the University of Abuja, she and Grandpa Obafemi officially launched a scholarship fund for disadvantaged law students. The room buzzed with excitement as young students, mentors, and friends gathered, each eager to celebrate the chance for a brighter future. Adana spoke with sincerity and passion. This fund is for those who have dreams but face obstacles. I know what it feels like to be overlooked, to have your efforts ignored. With this support, you can focus on your education and your future just as I was able to. Her parents were present, cautiously attempting to make amends. They spoke polite words, offering apologies and soft smiles, but Adana listened quietly, her mind clear. She appreciated the gesture, but she would no longer allow herself to be manipulated. Calmly she set firm boundaries. I hear your words, she said, but my life, my career, and my choices are mine. I hope you understand that respect and actions matter more than empty apologies. After the ceremony, Grandpa Obafemi handed her a small, carefully wrapped box. Inside was a family heirloom, a simple but meaningful symbol of legacy, wisdom, and values that couldn't be bought with money. This is for you, Adana, he said softly. Remember, wealth fades and greed divides, but wisdom and love endure. Carry it with you not just as a gift but as a reminder of what truly matters. Adana held the heirloom, feeling the weight of its meaning. She glanced at the students, the friends, and most importantly at Grandpa, whose steady support had shaped her into the woman she had become. In that quiet, powerful moment, she understood the ultimate truth. True family is measured not by blood or riches, but by who stands for you when the world turns away. She smiled, knowing she had found her family and her legacy at last.